Welcome to another episode of Simply Sapphic. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Simply Sapphic. I'm Amanda.
I'm Allison.
And we are here joined by Whitney, who is a sex educator. We are so excited to be here. This is a topic that we are a little excited, a little nervous to put out into the internet because it's so taboo. How do you have lesbian sex? It's definitely when I came out, aside from like, how do I be queer? Who the heck? What's going on with my body? What do I do with my life? My first like queer sex experience, I was like completely lost in. And so it was definitely one of the biggest questions that I had when I first came out of the closet. And the reason why I'm so nervous to do this episode is because the internet is such an interesting place. And I'm sure you know, Whitney, like being a sex educator, being a queer sex educator, like I'm sure you
and on the internet.
And on the internet, it's like, it's so interesting because when you talk about these like taboo, explicit topics that are so necessary to our audience, like it's so frustrating to me that we don't have sex education, both like tactical and educational around what to do. When I first came out, I turned to like Emma Watson's OMG, like not Emma Watson's, but she like promoted it at one point. OMG, yes. And I went on there and they have like live prototypes of labias that you can like practice on. You can like tongue to screen, put your finger on there and like the prototypes will like move and stuff. But it definitely was like, it was definitely from a heterosexual lens. And it's really interesting because I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was what I liked, but I couldn't translate that into what to do. Needless to say, listeners, this episode will be one of the most like not safe for work episodes we have of this season. So if you are uncomfortable or uncomfortable in your current setting with the words vulva, labia, coming, orgasm, clitoris, I recommend skipping this. That includes any family members of mine who are listening. Stop listening now. But because we will be covering a lot of really awesome, really exciting topics that I think everybody needs to learn, but it's not something you should be listening to
at work.
Okay.
Unless your work environment is wild. But
yeah. I also want to say before we jump into this that I really recommend watching our sex ed for Sapphics video, which is the first episode of season 2. We talk with Planned Parenthood and we go over anatomy. We go over like a lot of really good prerequisite stuff that's going to help explain a lot of this episode.
Yeah, we go over safety, health,
consent,
all of that
conversation.
Stuff.
We talk about like female condoms. We talk about like a lot of different things that I think are you will definitely need. So stop this video, listen to that one, and then come back to this one because they're definitely a two-parter. Nice. Okay, with all of that said, Whitney, thank you for jumping on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We are so excited. We found you online and we just love your content. We watched a bunch of your stuff and it's just amazing how you give so much for free on your page. Like it's just so much information that I was like, yes, like absolutely. And so you had a huge follow from the both of us a bit ago.
And it's just great to have like somebody out there who is like speaking so openly about the experience, about the struggles, the highlights, and like giving kind of guidance. Because as Amanda said earlier, it's not something that's talked about enough. And it's not something that's talked about enough in a way that people are easily able to access it.
For sure.
Okay. No. So let me turn the mic over to you. So who are you? What are you most known for, and what are you up to now?
Well, hi, I'm Whitni Miller. I'm most known for, now I'm most known on Instagram as a queer couples intimacy coach. So I help lesbian and queer couples navigate libido differences. So if you get turned on fast, your partner gets turned on a little slower, I help you meet in the middle. But originally I started out just making sex ed content on TikTok during COVID. Just fun stuff. I'm running retreats. I do public speaking. I educate my peers and general folks, and I also do nerd nights and do I do like PowerPoint presentations in breweries, helping people navigate the hard taboo topic of sex.
So you talk about sex at these nerd nights?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if I've got a mic in my hand, I am talking about sex. That's my leadership role.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so necessary. I love that there are people out there like that. What made you want to get into this?
I have been into sex education since I was 15 years old. So from the time that I was like, "Hey, pretty sure I'm gay," I was like, "I would really like to be good at this." So I
Oh my god.
I I went and picked up Dr. Ruth's Sex for Dummies. So this is like early 2000s, and I aged myself. So I'm 40. So you backtrack 15, yeah, like 25 years ago. That's when I started reading about sex research and like listening to Dr. Sue. If anybody my age is listening, like Dr. Sue at night had her little beige phone, and she would answer all the sex questions late at night, and I would just sit there ready to eat up her wisdom. I've never been shy around the topic, and I've just been diving in face first to get all the knowledge I can because it's a bottomless topic. So if you're feeling shameful about getting information on sex, just know that I've been studying it for 25 years and there's still more to learn. So you probably got something to learn too.
Also really love that there is, because of the way that we were raised, a bit of a shame aspect. I know, like, especially with people who have unpleasant experiences with sex, it might be hard to like reframe
Mm-hmm.
coming into the sex conversation with a partner that feels, or a relationship, or
Uh-huh.
an intimacy, queer intimacy that feels so safe and so pleasurable, kind of
Yep.
extracting your previous experiences to allow a new one. And I love that, like, in speaking to you before this episode, it was like, oh, okay, like you should be working with every queer person, like as like a some like whenever you come out, go talk to Whitney. Like
Yeah.
like that's part of the handbook.
That's
Yeah,
what people used to say in my high school. So it's pretty funny.
I love that. I
That's
love that.
amazing.
So you run a company called
Mhm.
BDE Moves, and I'm curious
Correct.
what BDE stands for.
Yeah, there's two things that that acronym stands for. One is my nickname. So, like 12 years ago or 13 years ago now, time is moving. Someone gave me the nickname BDE. And that was my friend Peyton. And she was like, "You got that BDE." And at the time, I didn't know what the hell that meant. So she had to tell me. I was like, "What's that mean, Peyton?" And she says, "It stands for big dick energy." And I was like, "Okay. Well, what's that mean to you?" And she's like, "Well, you have this real calming presence and it feels like you're secure with yourself. And that makes me feel calmer when I'm around you." And I was like, fucking love that. So I made it my Instagram handle on the spot. And when I built the company, I just turned my nickname over there. And now I run a program called the Bed Death Eraser program. Because like many lesbians will say, "I've got bed death," but it's not a lesbian thing. All orientations go through bed death.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because when I came out, I literally learned about the bed death, like
It
lesbian bed
scared
death.
me.
It did.
I know. That's what I hear from a lot of people is they're like, "Oh," they'll talk about it like you've got bed bugs. "We've got the lesbian bed death," like you've been infested, but it's usually a communication breakdown coupled with the social program of having shame wired with sex. So
Yeah.
you
And
stop
for
talking about
listeners
it.
who don't know what bed death is, do you mind explaining
Mhm.
that?
Absolutely. Bed death, like I said, it's not a lesbian thing. It can happen to any orientation. And this is where you've come to a place in the relationship where sex is taking a back seat. So it's not even something to pathologize yourself with, like something's broken, something's bad. You could be going through grief. You could be going through extreme bouts of stress, and your nervous system isn't wired to reach for sex as a stress relief. Instead, it pulls back. Now, you could be with a partner who reaches for who reaches for sex when they're stressed out, and that's when you're going to butt heads and you need to come talk to me. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
But I love that, just like starting off from the get of this episode, like listeners knowing that bed
Mhm.
death is like not a terminal diagnosis.
No,
Bed bugs, like
it's
everyone
not.
experiences it in some way. And I love how you said
Absolutely.
it's more of just a communication breakdown that doesn't doom your relationships.
Absolutely not.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because I feel like media and like the general society like thought
Mhm.
around sex is that, like, if you're not having sex every day, like you're in an unhappy relationship. Like there is no intimacy, like
Uh-huh.
then there is no love. And it's really interesting, like in the queer community, right? There's a lot of people who are asexual. So obviously we know that's not true. But if you
Mhm.
are allosexual, which means that you experience sexual
Attraction.
attraction, thank you, to people, then, like, it is, like, if you're not having it all the time, then there's something
Uh-huh.
wrong. But in reality, like, your sexual desire, like, waxes and wanes and waxes and wanes, and it is, like.
And it's like unique to each person,
Mhm.
each day, each
It is.
situation. And
The
so there's
time of
no
the
like,
day.
yeah,
Everything.
time of the day, what you
Mhm.
ate,
Mhm.
like, and there's no like one fit all formula to having any kind of successful intimate relationships with somebody.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, like, Amanda, something that you were pointing out was like when you said when there's no intimacy. And I want to ask you, like, when you said no intimacy, like, what do you mean?
That's okay. That's actually a really good question because we asked, um,
Our
okay,
Planned
our
Parenthood
Planned
representative,
Parenthood
Mm-hmm.
representative, like, what does sex mean to you? Because a lot of people think about sex in a very heterosexual way, which
Mm-hmm.
is like penetration, penis and vagina, and that is what
Mm-hmm.
sex is. And so to answer your first question, what is intimacy? To me,
Mm-hmm.
intimacy, I guess, is anything that is like I guess intimacy to me is like playful shows of like physical affection.
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking by and like squeezing your butt or something, to like
Okay.
just like a quick makeout session in the kitchen while things are cooking. It doesn't necessarily have to be sex,
Mm-hmm.
but I would love to pose the question to you of how do
Mm-hmm.
you define sex as a queer sex educator?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I love this one because sex is different for all orientations. The first thing I want to do is separate sex and intimacy because intimacy is a mutual exchange of vulnerability. Like if you want to look up the Google Cambridge Dictionary definition of it, so that could be anything. I could be intimate with a family member, and that's not something that's out
Mhm.
of West Virginia. It's being like mutual exchange of vulnerability. So you want to think of intimacy as just into me you see. So
Oh,
what happens in relationships when sex becomes a hard conversation is we don't see into each other anymore. So it actually increases this feeling of being misunderstood, but we keep pointing to sex as the problem. It's not, it's just the most tangible thing in the room that I can point to and wrap language around. So really, it is focusing on intimacy that will bring sex back into the relationship and not the other way around.
I
But
love that.
Wow, I love into me you see, like,
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And
yeah.
so then you define intimacy, but what is sex to you?
Yeah, sex is what I consider is a consensual, mutual exchange of arousing energy that
Mm,
could potentially build into an orgasm, but does not require one.
I love that. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I love these conversations because they're so important because I think
Yes.
oftentimes people are building their definitions based on what they're seeing in the media or what their friends are saying.
Or what
Yeah,
heterosexual people are.
Yeah, or like
absolutely.
how they're taught through the church or how they're taught through, certain like even generational knowledge, which may not align to you if you're queer and you might be the first queer person in your family,
Yeah,
and you're like, where do I learn to define these things? And so I think
for
it's
sure.
great that we're talking about these differences between intimacy
Mhm.
and what sex is. And I think it's going to help our conversation as we go into, okay,
Mhm.
well, now what do we do now that we're down here?
I do wanna talk about a little bit more myths about lesbian sex because they're like you said, the orgasm doesn't have to be the point of sex, right? It's, like,
Yeah.
intimate and, like, it's that arousal energy. Like, what other myths do you see around lesbian sex?
One is like that has to happen for hours.
Mm,
Everybody wants to talk about that. It does happen. I have a couple of theories about that. It's usually going to be in your new relationship energy because you're literally high. Like your dopamine is at this level that it's not sustainable for you to stay living. So it only lasts for a few months, usually anywhere typically from 3 months to 18 months is going to be your new relationship energy phase. And it's usually going to be in those first few months where it's like, we fuck like rabbits. And some people will report having sex for hours. You are no less a lesbian if you never have sex for hours, though. I want to say that. And so for those of you who are out there, like, I've never experienced that, it doesn't mean anything. It's just something that happens. It doesn't define you. So that's one. The orgasm thing is a big one. I think that's like overarching through all orientations is that we think that to say that sex was good, an orgasm has to happen. But what about in a situation where focusing and getting so frustrated to have this orgasm has taken all the pleasure out of it?
mhm,
Then what was the point?
mhm.
Yeah, and then, like, how can you be present when you're too focused on the end goal or on a end goal? Yeah.
Absolutely. Now you're in your emotional management. I have to have this orgasm so you know you did a good job. I have to
Mhm.
give you an orgasm so I know I did a good job. And we're both chasing this external performance of pleasure instead of actually checking in and being like, "Hey, did this feel good to you? Did
Oh.
you have a good time? Am I having fun?"
Mm.
So now it's like we're chasing this outer appearance more than we are checked in with our internal experience.
I think one of the biggest changes that I really had to learn going from heterosexual sex to queer sex
Mhm.
was during heterosexual sex, like I had a high libido. I It was mostly just like holding my breath and like hoping that it would be done soon. And I
Mm.
never orgasmed during heterosexual sex. And so it wasn't like I was I guess it was, like, the only way that I knew how to get close to my partners, and so going from, like, holding my breath and hoping that it's over, kind of being out of body during sex, and then coming into queer relationships and learning, like, oh, sex is supposed to be pleasurable. Sex is a way for you to connect with your body, it's a way for you to connect with your partner's body. It's to this day, it's something that I'm learning how to do to, like, come back into my body during sex and remind myself that I am allowed pleasure.
Absolutely. That'll be a practice you'll do for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Good for you to commit to it, but, like,
Yeah.
don't run at it like there's a finish line, there's not.
Yeah.
There's just more layers to explore about yourself. It's a reminding each other too in the experience, like, 'cause very sensitive to each other when we start to attune. So you can feel when your partner leaves and they're in their head.
Mhm.
Do I smell good? Do I taste good? Am I taking too long to have an orgasm? It bumps us up against all of the self-worth stuff that we're running from during the day, being super productive to maintain our worth. And then when you're still enough with someone to where they're offering you pleasure, it starts to bump up against that narrative in your head like, am I taking up too much space? Am I worth this pleasure this person's giving me? Am I making their jaw tired? You know, that's just where we go. So we got to give each other reassurance in the moment, like, you taste so good. I could do this all day. I'm right here. Take your time.
Yeah. I think that's probably the first of many answers to the question of what do I do now that I'm down here for listeners
Mhm.
is like the first thing that you need to do and need to know is that you're there to give pleasure to your partner and to receive pleasure for you. And there,
Mhm.
as like many of us know, there's lots and lots of pleasure to be had up to the orgasm. So,
Absolutely.
like, focusing on the connection, focusing on the playful, focusing on less
Mhm.
the orgasm, which is what, like, heterosexual, patriarchal, colonized, like, we need to reproduce.
Yeah.
This is what we've been taught, but, like,
Yeah.
without the pressure and without the pressure of that, it's just
Things become, like,
fun.
limitless.
Yeah.
They do, and that's overwhelming, you
Yes.
know? When it's limitless, when it's like, "Oh, I can do anything, but tell me the right thing to do." I understand, I get it, because being socialized as a woman is being socialized to wait for a cue to respond to.
Mhm.
So if you've been taught your whole life to sit there and wait for a green flag or wait for a cue to respond to, then that's how we end up sitting next to each other, twiddling our thumbs and being like, I don't know if she's flirting with me or not. You know, it's like we have to bump up against the way we've been socialized to step into defining pleasure on our own terms. It is part of the journey.
It's interesting because that's something that I feel like a lot of people really struggle with, especially if you were socialized as a woman born AFAB, is that, like,
100%.
you don't know how to initiate
No,
sex.
most
And
of the
so
time.
sometimes, like, you will get in our heads of, like,
Hmm.
even me, I'll get in my head of, like, I don't want to make Allison uncomfortable by,
Mm.
like, starting to
Hmm.
like, initiating sex. And so it will, like, get into this weird space of, like, I wanna have sex, they probably wanna have sex, but how do
Hmm.
we meet? How do we let each other know that we wanna have sex without
Yes.
being like, "Well, I don't wanna come off as too like, putting too much pressure," or, like, if they're tired, I don't wanna, like, push them into it just because I want to. Because
Hmm.
I feel like as women and AFAB people, like, we were a lot of times, it's like, sometimes we were pushed into sex when we didn't want to, and I feel like a lot of us come into sex now as, like, we don't want to push that experience onto our partner.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, but what you're pointing out is that at some point someone didn't respect consent.
Mhm.
And now you're too afraid to ask for consent because you think just asking is creating pressure.
Damn.
Oh my god. I was like,
Right.
You know, it's like,
"What?"
okay, okay. So in that, you've got to trust your partner to be honest with you. So something in that tells me that maybe you might be doing a little people pleasing if you're afraid that your partner is going to do it too.
Mm. Mhm.
So it's like, are they going to say yes and they don't really want to just because they don't want to upset me? How often are you doing that? If that's the
Mhm.
narrative in your head.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's coming from a partner, but sometimes calls coming from inside the house.
Super. Yeah.
And we got to check ourselves because if you want to move forward, it's okay to be assertive. It's okay to have desire. There's nothing wrong, bad, coercive about you wanting to have sex with your partner. Nothing. But because we come out of this like patriarchal world where sex is approached by cis men with this bravado or like this
Mm.
machismo or whatever the hell they think they're doing, we forget so much that the missing piece there was the request of consent. As long as consent is there, there's nothing wrong with you desiring sex with your partner.
And knowing that, like, you're not if they say no, then you aren't gonna pressure them. Because
Oh.
oftentimes it was like a male partner asked for my consent, I said no, and then they kinda like
Kinda bullied.
pushed me into it, you know?
Yes.
And so knowing that
That's coercion. Yeah, that's an abusive practice. Let's just
yeah,
call it what it is. Like,
yeah,
you're being abusive, and that way you can notice when you're not being abusive. Like, let's notice the pieces that are there that are not there when you approach sex.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
makes it easier for you to be like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not being a creep," you know? Creeps don't care about whether they're making somebody else feel creeped out. So if you care, you're probably not a creep.
Agree,
You're
yeah,
probably not a, like,
yeah, yes.
right.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
something.
what are some ways that you can initiate sex?
Absolutely. So it just depends on your approach to sex. Are you more someone who likes your partner to take the lead? So you might be a little more provocative in the way that you approach sex. So you might come in with a certain outfit on that you know elicits a response out of your partner. So that might be a little softer approach for those of you who are like, I don't want to just be like, hey, do you want to have sex? Which might not be the best approach if you have a responsive desire partner. But a lot of times my wife will put on something that she knows is going to get a response out of me. And she'll just walk across the room. So it's very subtle. Or she can go into the bedroom. I could be in another room and she could text me, hey, will you meet me in here? That's pretty direct. Gets the point across. If your partner doesn't know those cues, though, you're going to have to be more clear. Or, a lot of times what we like for AFAB folks is like a slow entry point in. So it might start off as cuddling that turns into kissing. If you like to do that approach, I really highly recommend having some direct cues like, hey, if I bite your bottom lip, I'm wanting more.
Mm.
Whereas if I don't bite your bottom lip, I'm just wanting to hang out and make out. Because if you make making out always turn into sex, now we don't make out as much.
Yeah, that's true. I have that
Mm,
too. Like
mhm.
sometimes when I'm like, "Oh, I'm afraid." Well, I used to a lot more, but like I would be like, "I don't wanna kiss you because then I'm gonna get pressured into having sex," or like, "I don't wanna cuddle you,"
Uh-huh.
or just like go back to back, especially with my heterosexual cis partners. I would be afraid to like
Mhm.
like lean into them from the front because then
Yes.
they like rubbing their
Yes.
on
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay,
All
so
right.
we've initiated sex.
We have
Let's
initiated
move in.
sex.
Yeah. Okay.
Systems
In
ago.
in this
Okay.
hypothetical situation, for listeners where we've initiated sex, we've gone over how to
Mhm.
initiate sex. Let's get into foreplay. So
Okay.
let's start with like what is foreplay and what is its purpose?
What is foreplay? That's a really great question because if you ask straight people, they're going to tell you a bunch of things that queer people are like, that's fucking.
That's
We're
just
having
sex.
sex. We're having sex. Oral sex, putting hands on genitals, all that. That's all sex. I always say that foreplay is how you make somebody feel before you touch them. Because this
Mm,
brings us back to pay attention to all the ways that we're interacting before sex happens. That could be, did you clear out the dishes in the sink? What ways are you making me feel considered so that when you put your hands on me, it doesn't remind me of all the ways you make me feel invisible?
mm.
These are really important parts because our nervous systems play a big role in whether I can access getting horny or not. So if you've made me feel invisible all day, other than when you want to have sex with me, then you haven't tended to foreplay in the way that would ease us into the situation that you're wanting to get into.
And I love looking at it that way, that it's like it's a broader look at somebody
Hmm.
feeling seen, appreciated, wanted through your daily life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Esther Perel tells us that foreplay begins at the end of sex and it's happening all the way until we start having sex again.
I love Esther Perel, and I've never heard of that before, and I love that because
Oh,
it's
I gotta
true.
listen to her more. Yes,
I
it's
know. I
absolutely
know
true.
it's
Because as soon as your partner puts their hands on you, they're asking you to first ground and be present with them and then to soften into them. And now I gotta feel safe with you. But if you can't hear me and show me with your actions that I'm considered in your life, I'm not going to soften. I'm gonna brace. You know,
true.
it's not
Mm.
gonna help me get horny.
No, I love that. So, I mean, you brought up the
Hmm.
example of like, are the dishes done? Like, what are things that your partner
Yeah.
really worries about that you can take off of their mind so that they can fully relax and be present in the moment without thinking about everything that has to be done?
Absolutely. And it's not always something that you have to do for your partner. Like for my wife, her self care routines are very important. So if I've noticed that, for example, she hasn't made it to the gym at all that week, we're not going to have sex. She doesn't want to
Mhm.
be present in her body right now because she's going through the mental gymnastics that are activated when she doesn't get that time to move her body the way that she likes.
I don't know why I'm like getting emotional at that. That's just such like, that's such deep, deep care and attention that you
Hmm.
are giving your wife. Like,
Yes,
wow, like, holy crap.
it's attunement.
Yes.
That's what keeps the nervous system regulated in the presence of the other, is to attune and to consider. So some people will think that that means that you always have to be fixing. But if you approach everything that your partner's going through with "you're going to fix it," you make your partner feel broken and like they
Mhm.
can't do it themselves, and you take away their power. And that doesn't feel sexy either. So you got to believe in them and like respect the routines that they have that take care of themselves. Like when me and my wife first started dating, she was like, "Don't mess with my yoga routine." And I was like, "Don't worry, never will. Never stand in the way of that." So she prioritizes her care for herself over me. Like she's always going to be the most important person to herself, and I honor that. And in that space, like I'm the most important person to myself, and we don't compete with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this quote that I don't know if it's a quote or if I made it up myself, but when I was dating, I had it in my profile, like,
I got me, you got you, we got each other.
this one knows. Yeah. It was like,
Yes.
I got me. I don't know why I need to repeat it, but like, it was like, I am
Yeah.
first priority. You are
Yes.
your first priority, and
That's
together
right.
we are each other's priority as well.
Yes. And this is how you can lose yourself in sex.
Mm.
Because that's the thing is like, we'll come into sex very hypervigilant as if you need to predict everything that the other person needs. But
Mhm.
actually, you just need to be ready to listen and receive whatever information they give you along the way. You're
Yeah,
not coming into this to be perfect and to show something to somebody's body that they don't know. You're coming here to listen and learn from them what they know about their body.
And I feel like that's, like, the money, because I think there's can be a pressure, especially when you're new to having, like, queer
Mm.
sex of, "I have
Yeah.
to be perfect, and I
Yes.
have to know everything." And
Yes.
kind of, like, dismantling that pressure and know
Absolutely.
about listening every day, all day, as you're going
Hmm.
through life, not just in the bedroom, not just when you're,
Yeah.
having certain situations, and I feel like
Hmm.
that makes sex it can make it feel less intimidating.
and it can make it
Absolutely.
that much more intimate
Yeah.
too.
Yes.
Am curious for listeners who don't live with their partner or are just
Yeah.
starting to date their partner, what are some
Hmm.
things that they can do to like attune to their partner? You know, like if you don't know them as
Hmm.
well, if you don't know about their yoga routine or you don't live with them so that you can
Yeah.
do the dishes.
Oh, for sure. Early in the relationship, you don't have to put those things on yourself. This is just about learning each other. So just applying that. Like if you're in your first few weeks of getting to know each other, you're in the question phase already. You're asking like, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do for hobbies? That's fine. You're doing it. That is the process.
Mm,
Is like, and then just continuing to stay curious with each other. So that's the big thing. Like when I talk to a couple, they've been together for 30 years, they're deep underneath this mound of assumptions that they've made about one another. So the person that they have in their head of who they think their partner is only exists in their mind because they've not been curious enough to explore who they actually are. You're changing and growing throughout the whole relationship. So you really want to keep that level of curiosity that you had at the beginning when you asked all those questions because her favorite color might not be green anymore, and you're just carrying that.
it's true. It's very
Mhm,
true.
mhm.
Okay, love that.
Yeah, no problem.
So moving from foreplay, which is incredible. I never thought about foreplay like that.
I know, I'm literally
I
like
know. I'm like, it's brain.
We can talk about it in a more grounded way. Like for those that are sitting here like, yeah, but what do I do before I do the thing? I got you still. I'm not going to leave you hanging there. So usually in foreplay, conventionally, the way that we're approaching this is one, we have to mention them. If we're talking about straight folks, then they're trying to say, what do I do before I put something inside of a vagina? So
Mm,
if you've got two people with a vagina in the room and they're thinking, what do I do before I put something inside a vagina? The first thing you're going to do is ask this person, do you even want anything in there?
mm,
Because not everybody with this body part wants penetration. Some of us have vaginismus. We might have sexual assault trauma. There's just things there, like just don't go like sliding a finger in thinking that it has to build to that because it doesn't have to.
mm.
Okay, so everybody gets to spell pleasure their way, and you can just ask the person you're with, like, do you like penetration or would you prefer me to just pay attention to the outside? And you can just approach it straightforward like that. If it feels awkward, cool. It's probably your first time asking somebody that. It's going to feel awkward.
And that's okay.
It's totally okay. Awkward is the first step to hot sex. Like, let it in the room. The other option is to fall into your perfectionism and not say anything. That's not the way. Now you're guessing. Now you're not being curious about this person. You're worried about controlling your image in front of them. That's not sexy. Doesn't feel
mhm.
good. Now you just feel frozen. Just get that information. You need it. so you can move.
Yeah, it's interesting also because something that's pretty socialized in the queer community is that whenever sex begins, there's a top and there's a bottom. Or
Uh-huh.
even like when you meet somebody, like, what's your favorite color? Are you a top or a bottom or a
Yeah.
switch?
Are you a dom or submissive?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's like in our community to be like, what is this? And I'm curious, like, if you could explain what those things mean and then just kind of
Absolutely.
your opinions on all of that.
For sure. Top and bottom, very simple. Top is who's giving the stimulation. Bottom is who is receiving the stimulation. So is there always a top and bottom? Yes. And they switch out, throughout. You can make that a direct conversation if you're uncomfortable with receiving pleasure. There's also stone tops and stone bottoms. Those are people with hard line boundaries. So they're saying, I either only want to receive stimulation or I only want to give it. So stone top, they're only giving. They usually don't want you to touch anything below the belt, and some of them don't want you to touch their chest. So you need to ask, like, where their limits are. And then, like, stone bottoms, they only want to receive, and that's just a boundary. Whereas top and bottom is something that's going back and forth. Within the kink community, it's the same thing, who's giving and who's receiving. But a lot of times people like to intertwine dom and sub and top and bottom like they mean the same thing, and they don't at all. A dom can be a top or a bottom. A sub can be a top or a bottom. Dominant and submissive are power dynamics. So that's not somebody coming up to you and being like, I'm a dom. I go, you might be to yourself, buddy, but if you're going to be my dominant, that's a negotiation. Okay. No one gets to put a power dynamic on you without a negotiation and your affirmed consent. So dom is whoever is giving direction. That's it. They're just giving the directions. They could be directing you to give them oral, and that's them being a dominant as a bottom. And the
And I would
submissive is
also
taking direction.
Yeah, and I would also love to touch on the term pillow princess and also maybe
Yeah,
break down some stigma on that. I know when
sure.
I first came out, I heard the term pillow princess like a swear word.
Yep.
Like, people were like, "Ew, she's a pillow princess." And I was like, "Whoa!" Like, and where does
Yes.
that come from? Break it down for us.
Sure. Well, okay. It's hard with slang for me to like pull it back and be like, this is what it means all the time, every time. So just preface with that. But a pillow princess is kind of like a stone bottom. They're only interested in receiving for whatever reason. This could be related to sexual assault trauma. It could be just a simple preference. Okay. So let's not put something on someone, but let's respect people's boundaries. In respecting people's boundaries, you can also be like, that's not compatible with me. I appreciate that you're respecting yourself, and that's not compatible with the way that I want to have sex. And those things are all okay. But like calling someone a pillow princess because they only want to receive and doing it in a derogatory way is unnecessary. You can just say that someone's not compatible with the way that you like to have sex without putting them down. It's completely unnecessary.
I agree.
Exactly. I feel like we've been seeing a lot of people, like, reclaiming
Oh,
pillow
yeah.
princess in, like, a
Yes,
really positive,
Yeah.
empowering context,
absolutely.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yes, like, wear your T-shirts, like, do it."
Yes.
Yeah.
Stone tops are looking for pillow princesses everywhere. They're a match made in heaven. So if that label fits and resonates with your identity, wear it proudly because there's someone out there who is absolutely compatible with that. But
Yeah,
like,
you're allowed to like what you like.
Yes.
absolutely, and you don't have to yuck anybody's yum. You don't have to do
Yes.
that. No.
So when I heard at some point that there are tops, there are bottoms, but most queer people are switches, especially in queer women. Most people are switches. And so, well, first of all, do you think that's true? I just saw it online.
It's so hard to pull like data for
Yeah,
queer
fair.
folks. It's something that I dig in all the time because my thing is like I see just as many women who get turned on when the wind blows as I see women who need time to get turned on. And I hate when straight people are like, all women have responsive desire. No, the fuck they don't. No,
Mhm.
the fact that I can think about my wife for 2 seconds. I am ready to go. And I talk to women like that every day. So it's hard to like pull this, but I would say having been queer for 25 years, yes, I've met a lot of people who I call it verse because I'm in the kink community. If you say switch to people who are in the kink community, we think you're talking about somebody who's dominant and submissive. So I
Okay.
have to watch
That's
that.
good
But
to know.
yeah, verse is something that's borrowed from the male gay community. So it just means that you both top and bottom, but everybody uses these terms interchangeably. At the end of the day, they're all slang. So it just depends on who you're saying it to, whether it's effective communication or not.
Which is good to know that if you're talking with a potential partner and you're using these words, define
Yeah.
them because they may view them as two completely different terms.
Super.
Yes,
Yeah,
you can
'cause I
ask
can see
them
that.
what it means to them. Yeah, because if they're active in the kink community, they're gonna be like, "What? I thought you knew how to do both of
Yeah.
these or that you like both of these dynamics." Yeah, but I think that just from my lived experience that, yeah, most folks, they go both ways, and if they don't, they're usually pretty upfront about that. They'll tell you, "I'm stoned," or, in the Black community, they'll say, "Touch me not." So it just depends.
Yeah. Okay. So, from the perspective of, let's say that in our hypothetical sex timeline right now,
In our sex journey.
in our sex journey,
It is sex journey.
we are now taking on the top. So, the person who is giving.
Yes.
Moving
Mhm.
in, we're going to talk about a couple different things because so you can use there's oral sex, there's you can use your hands,
Mhm.
and there's sex
Yes.
toy stopping. We're going to get into all of those and more. But let's
Yes.
start with like oral sex. So say you're top, you are giving. What are first of all, what is oral sex? And then give us some techniques for beginners who are just starting to like they're down there and they're like, what do I do with my mouth?
Yeah, yeah. So oral sex is when you're putting your mouth on somebody's genitals. You're gonna stimulate using your mouth. The cool thing is like there is a potential to have an orgasm just from having stimulation to your mouth. So there are lots of people who be topping in oral sex and they'll report having orgasms themselves. They do not feel like clitoral stimulation orgasms. They feel more like an energy pulse kind of coming through your core. So if you ever have like a buildup of that when you're breathing, it's a good sign that you have the potential to have those type of orgasms. When you get down there, one of the number one things that I've always done ever since I've started going down there is approach slowly. Like you don't have to get in there and just like face dive. I will actually go into teasing, which is to kiss the thighs. And then as I go over the vulva, I'll just kind of hot breath really close and kind of fake out and then go over and kiss the other thigh. You're going to get some information by doing this. Okay. One, you're going to find out whether this person likes teasing or not, which usually they'll just like enjoy what's happening. Whereas if they don't like teasing and they're direct, like my wife is, they'll grab your head and pull it into their V. They're like, just stop fooling around down there. And this gives you really good feedback, especially if you've never gone down on somebody before. You're like, oh, this person likes build up, or no, this person likes if I just get right into it. And then if they don't give you like that direct physical redirect in the moment, you can ask them afterwards, hey, did you like the way I was teasing you, or do you prefer if I hurry through that? And so this is good feedback as well. You just like kiss the thighs, do the hot breath back and forth. I do that like 2 or 3 times, and then you can start to move your mouth toward there. Now, this is the part where you need to know, does this person like direct stimulation or indirect stimulation? Because some people have really sensitive clitorises and they would prefer you keep some skin in between you and their clit. So some people are going to have a hood that covers that clitoris completely and like you won't see the little nub peek out. And some people can have very exposed ones. Some people have longer, bigger. They're like snowflakes. They're all beautiful and magical and they're all completely different. And that's wonderful. So don't get down there and be worried if somebody has like one labia longer than the other. They're siblings. They're not twins. So it's just like that's how it is. So with that, I like to come in with just my lips at first instead of the tongue. So I'm gonna have puffy lips. So you just want to like kind of purse them out like you're gonna give a kiss or something exaggerated, like kind of fish face. Just describing this for people who only listen to audio.
If you're listening in, I recommend going to YouTube because I think we're going to get a little bit more visual now.
Right on. So you're gonna purse your lips out and just brush your lips over the clitoris. If the person you're with kind of pulls back a little bit when you do that, they have a very sensitive clitoris. So you might want to stay indirect the whole time and never put your tongue like directly on it and making sure you're keeping like folds of labia and the clitoral hood and maybe even some of the outer labia between you and their direct clitoris as you're stimulating them. Whereas if you start doing the lip thing and they kind of push towards you or just stay and enjoy that, you can probably put your tongue directly there. So that's just some ways to like find out as you're getting to know somebody new, but you always want to follow up afterwards in your aftercare. Did you like anything in particular? What was the hottest part for you? So give you good information.
Yeah. I remember when we were initially talking, you had talked about like when the clitoris is like as the clitoris gets stimulated and more turned on, like it
Mhm.
it swells, right? and you will
Yes.
have a difference in how you approach it based off of, like,
Mhm.
how stimulated the clitoris is.
Yes. So sometimes that won't happen
Mm.
when there's like arousal non-concordance, which can happen in AFAB bodies where they can feel extremely turned on, but there's no changes to the labia or clitoris, as in the erectile tissue does not become engorged. But in a situation where the erectile tissue is engorged, this is going to happen most of the time. It's usually like, I forget the percentages, it's something like 30% or less are going to experience arousal non-concordance. And that's just like the struggle to get the mind-body connection. So in the cases where it does become engorged, like that blood flow comes with arousal, and that increases the size of the tissue. So the inner labia are going to get thicker because that's erectile tissue, and the clitoris is going to engorge. That's erectile tissue. Now, in some cases, the clitoris can swell up to 5 times of its resting size. So everybody gets erections during sex. And they go up and down in a wave because arousal moves in a wave through you. Now, if your mouth is on there and you've got your tongue against the clitoris and around the inner labia, you can feel it swell. And sometimes you can feel that swelling going down. So when you feel it swelling up, that's usually a sign that you can apply a little more pressure than you've been given before. Because in those moments, that touch becomes more pleasurable instead of irritating. If you do it before, it doesn't feel as good. So when the swelling goes down, you want to back away and give less pressure. And when the swelling goes up, you can lean in and give more pressure.
That's
Yeah.
great. And for listeners who are like, if you've heard some words that you don't understand, again, go back to our sex ed
Yeah.
episode because we break down what is a labia,
Mm.
what is inner, all of
I
that.
mean, if you've got the YouTube,
There we
we can go
go.
over him if you want to. It's like, it's not a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I think one of the funniest things that I saw when I was, I'm a big, like, I need to have some kind of education. Whenever I do something, I need to learn
Yeah.
all around it before I approach it. And so when I started having like queer sex with a lady involved, I was like taking courses. And one of the
Yep.
funniest things that somebody said to me in a course, and it was like I took it as if I was like a cis man because I wanted to know how to go down on someone with a labia. But they said you take your tongue and you basically draw the ABCs with your tongue over their clit. And I'm gonna say this, and I know you're also going to say this, but that was the single worst piece of advice I have ever been given. So I'm curious, do you have any other better advice around what to do with your tongue?
Yeah. Keep it simple. Like O is a great word. I mean, a great letter. Just O. So
Mm.
circles are good. Zigzags are good. Even figure eights, I would say, before you're going to go do the whole alphabet, because some of those letters are boring, like C, X. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody. Some people might like those. This is not me yucking your yum. But the problem with doing the alphabet is now I'm thinking about ABCs and I'm not paying attention to how my partner's breathing, any of their body movements, or these cues that are going to help me develop attunement with them. I would say following some internal dialogue is probably going to take you out of what's happening in the present moment. Whereas you want to pay more attention to listen to their breathing is really helpful because like you could hear when somebody's like breath hitches or when they're enjoying something and that soothes you because you're down there wondering, am I doing this okay? Does they even like this? And like you want to listen to that feedback instead of, am I on D, E, or F?
Yeah, that's true. And another piece of advice that I gave that I
Mhm.
think you can like try out and pay attention to how your partner responds is like tip of your tongue pressure
Mhm.
and movement versus the flat side of your tongue pressure and movement.
Mhm.
Because I find that like certain partners and certain times
Mhm.
like different parts of your tongue because I know like with a
Mhm.
wide like back of your tongue pressure it gets more of the clitoris, but
Mhm.
you can draw more circles with the tip of your tongue.
Mhm. And I would like say when you're doing the build up portion, you're not in that place where it's like right there, don't stop, do it just like that. Like we're
Mhm.
not there yet. Play around.
Mm.
Like don't lock into a pattern in the build up because that gets your partner in their head that they need to be escalating toward an orgasm when you're locked into a pattern. So in that early build up, we want to play. So come in with like a pancake tongue, just like flat and wide, stick it out of your mouth like you're going to lick an ice cream cone and just go all the way from where the urethra is, like below here, and just glide all the way up. So you're like splitting the labia with your flat tongue and just bringing it up and lapping and breathing out of your mouth and do a couple of those. And then that's just you being like, I love this. I love the way you taste, and I'm just playing around down here. I'm doing this for my pleasure. Like in that moment, be selfish. Make it about you instead of being so about them because they're up there wondering if you're having a good time. So I need to keep this communication back and forth that everybody's having fun, everybody's having a good time.
Yeah. I think one of
Uh,
the sexiest things, like, that really takes me out of my head personally
mhm.
is when somebody says, because I get in my head a lot where I'm like, "Are they
Mhm.
having fun? Am I taking too long?" And
Yeah.
I think one of the sexiest things that someone can say to take me out of my head is, "I could be down here forever." And then I
Yeah.
go, "I can take my time," which then speeds up my orgasm,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. And you can say all of that while stimulating the clit. You can rub it with your lips while you say those things. You don't have to even stop what you're doing to reassure the other person. You can also like grab one of their hands. You can be squeezing hands as a way to communicate with each other. If you're comfortable with it and you're receiving oral, putting your hands on the back of the person's head is a way to just communicate how much you're enjoying it. You don't have to like drive them unless you enjoy that part. But just like little soft fingertips on the back of the head or like a grip when you really like something. This just keeps that communication going back and forth so you're not lost in your own negative, internal critic spiral.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned, like, and I know I'm keeping it into oral sex right now, but we'll
Mhm.
talk about, like, integrating your hands and sex toys in just a minute. But you
Mhm.
mentioned that once you get into we're locked in, we're going
Uh-huh.
to orgasm, you wanna pick one pattern, and that
Yes.
is true for a lot of people that I talk to, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So once you feel somebody's body kind of, there's like a trying to think about the best way to describe it, because there's kinda like a locking up. Most AFAB folks are gonna get tense. Some will need to put their legs together, and that can be kinda hard to do when you got somebody down there. So, like, if you're somebody and you know that you have to put your legs together and kinda stiffen them to have an orgasm, that's something to talk about ahead of time. Because there's positions that you can get into and make that happen. The giver is gonna have to kinda push their face in and, like, pull their head back to keep their chin back so they can breathe to do it, but you can absolutely do it. But, usually in those situations, what I do is I bring my hands around my wife's thighs and then I lock my palms up on top of her thighs. And that way she's telling me with the rocking of her hips where she's at. Because
Mm,
she's driving the vehicle at that time. I'm just listening and being where I'm supposed to be. So once you're locked into that, I usually am applying some light suction to keep my lips and tongue in the place they need to be, because there can be some bucking happening at that time. I've also got my lips tucked around my teeth so that I don't bite, or cause any interruptions in a painful way while that bucking is happening. But when you've got your hands locked around the thighs that way, you can feel the rocking of the hips. And if the person that you're with is too shy to rock their hips, you can gently encourage them to do it.
mm.
You want to do this because that hip rocking keeps blood flow coming to the clitoris. So you're like activating that pelvic floor in a way that you're helping to build a stronger, more pleasurable orgasm.
Okay, that's good to know. And
Mm.
then with your tongue, you're just doing one pattern, right?
You're picking whatever this person enjoys to
Yeah.
get there. Like when they're doing the breath gets short, and
Mhm.
then they're in that moment, that's probably the pattern you should go with if you two haven't discussed it directly. And then, especially if they're saying like right there, just like that, don't stop. This is the part where we get excited and we usually go faster. I'm going to caution you not to do that. The way that you want to bring that back down is when you hear somebody say just like that, don't stop, or anything akin to that, take a deep breath.
Mhm.
You as the giver, like take a deep breath because they really need you not to go any faster than what you're doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all this. I didn't
Oh,
even think
yeah.
about the rocking of the hips as like why that feels good is because it like
Mhm.
brings in blood flow and like
Yes.
yeah, it's always like it always takes me out of it if I'm like I'm right there, like I'm about to come,
Mhm.
then they get faster and I'm like, "Dad, like no."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah,
like, do not pass go, do not collect
yes.
$200.
Yeah.
And it's hard because even with all of my training, I get excited when I know. But the thing I always do is I take a deep breath, I regulate my nervous system and bring myself back down in that space and ground and just follow whatever my wife's body is doing. So whatever pace her hips are rocking is the pace that my tongue is moving.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I love,
Mhm.
like, just again for like listeners who are maybe like new to it, it's like okay
Mhm.
to get excited, you
It
know?
is. Oh, it's
Yeah.
exciting. It's
Yeah,
exciting. Yes.
exactly, and, like, I love the tool of just, like, it's okay to be excited and take a deep
Yeah.
breath.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like
just take a deep breath.
yeah.
Yeah.
You got
Okay,
you.
let's
Yeah.
talk about hands. So you can
Absolutely.
do oral with hands at the same time.
You
And
sure can.
so what are some ways you can use your hands?
Absolutely. So this one I love because the thing about vaginal penetration is you want to wait until the vagina elongates and widens because that's when penetration is going to be the most pleasurable. And this keeps us from having that sensation of, I think, do I need to pee or do I need what?
Mm.
Does
Mm,
this feel good or not? Like if you've ever been in that space when somebody does penetration of any type and it just feels like it's hitting something that doesn't feel good. And you're kind of like half in, half out. That just means that you've come in too soon. Dr. Kelly Casperson says you want arousal at an 8 or don't penetrate.
I'm
So
loving
the
all these
way
little, like, catchphrases.
Yes.
you gotta have a little mantra. Then
Yeah.
like remember to keep it going. The way that you can see if it's time is you want to do what's called shallowing. So you may have learned this on OMGS. But shallowing is you're just going to take the pad of your finger, so the really pad of your fingertip, and maybe you're doing some oral to the clitoris, and you're going to go right to where you want to find the perineum. So if you're not looking, this is the safest way to look for it, is to find that piece of skin that's in between the anus and the vaginal opening. And you're just going to like press there. And as you press there, it's actually going to guide your finger right up into the opening. That way
Nice.
you're not poking around wondering where it is. Just take the pad of your finger, find the perineum, press gently, glide up. It'll take you right to it. Once you're at the opening, you're going to take the pad of your finger and just lightly push on it. And what you're feeling for is some suction. So when
Mm.
a vagina is ready, it's going to invite you in. You won't have to push. You won't have to force. Just treat like a vampire. If you weren't invited in, don't go in. Okay. So the best ways, if you can continue to do your oral, you want to make sure that your fingers are well lubricated. You also want to make sure that you don't have like rough fingernails or pointy rings. Pointy rings is what I find the most. Like with lesbians, we love to adorn our fingers with some jewelry, but if they're stabby, take them
Take them
off.
off.
Take them off. There's a really sexy way to do that. Just look right at her, lick your fingers, take those rings off, or like stick your finger in her mouth if you're into that kind of kinky stuff, and then take your rings off. You can make it saucy if you forgot to in the heat of the moment. But watch those things. And as you're going in, you're going to twist your fingers around so that the pad of your fingers are pointed up toward your person's navel. So now you're looking for the back side of the clitoris because the clitoris is huge. It's big, does big work. So what you're looking for is that backside on the apex, and that's what we're stimulating when we do that come hither. So you're not inside scratching or anything. You're come hithering, like you're summoning a genie, not like you're stuffing a turkey.
Yeah, and for folks that are listening, it's, like, almost kinda like you're curling your fingers a little bit. How would you, yeah, describe that for
Yeah.
part watching on YouTube?
So it's like you are massaging the backside of the clitoris. So instead of thinking it about like stuffing your fingers in like penetratively in and out, you're actually bringing them in about 2 knuckles deep and then beginning to massage the fingers back towards you, toward the navel of the person.
And I know some people talk about the like rougher skin that has more folds, kind of like the G spot.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can find those ridges there, that's the urethral sponge. So that's generally the area you're gonna find that usually feels good with that stimulation. If you can't find that area and you don't feel those ridges, the person might not be aroused enough. So you need to get more blood flow into that area so that part becomes more prominent.
And also, here's another shout out to our Sex Ed for Sapphics because we have a diagram of the urethral sponge in that episode of
Nice.
Parenthood.
And we talked all about vaginal lubrication in that
Yes.
episode, in
Yep.
that section. So if you're like, Allison, Amanda, what are these words you're using?
Yeah.
Go to that episode
Yeah.
and we'll break it down for you.
That's why there's a prerequisite.
Yes, exactly.
Like
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, anything else about hands?
I guess it's the hill that everybody wants to die on. Do I use my pointer and my middle finger? Do I use my 2 middle fingers? You use whatever fingers you and the owner and operator of that vagina want you to use. I mean, because like when we're talking about two people with vaginas, the possibilities are endless. Some people like fisting, but that's a more advanced portion, so we're not going to get into that today. But when you're thinking about like which fingers am I supposed to use, the ones that give you the most control. So
Yeah,
you
because I was
decide.
always told you use your middle and ring finger, and to me, I can't move my fingers as well as my middle and pointer finger. So I typically use these, but I know people who
For
Yes,
me, it changes.
it
I'm
does.
like, "Today, this is how it was working out. Tomorrow," like, it
yeah.
can also change it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
absolutely can. So, I
Some
mean
people use thumb,
Yeah.
like, something that I really like to do is I'll use my, let me see if I can do this right for the camera,
mm,
but I'll
mhm,
use my fingers in
mhm.
the vaginal canal here, and then I'll
Yep.
take my thumb and stimulate the clitoris. So I'm
Yes.
like this, basically, and
Yeah.
that works out really well. 'Cause
And
I
that
get
makes you
yeah, 'cause I get lockjaw, and so if I'm like, "Oh, this is" I'm not
mhm.
feeling good enough to use my mouth, I'll do that, and it works out really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I say,
Yeah.
explore, play around,
Mhm,
get curious, and don't think
mhm.
that everything has to make an orgasm happen in the next 30 seconds. That
Yes.
really opens things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think something too with hands that I would love to talk about more is that it doesn't have to be penetrative with your hands.
Absolutely not.
And so what are some non-penetrative ways people can use their hands?
Absolutely. So one is that you can use the shallowing. So shallowing can be fun because it's pressing. Um, it's like a rimming almost. So you're just here, you're just keeping the pad of the finger on the outside, and what we're doing is we're pushing that inner labia, so it's actually stimulating the legs and the bulbs of the clitoris. So you don't
Mm.
have to go inside to stimulate other parts of the clitoris. She could be doing oral, which is getting up here on the I call it the nub, the little nub of the clitoris, and then you're doing the shallowing down here with your pad of your finger and not going inside, and that's pushing on the bulbs and the legs. So then you get that multi-point stimulation. You can also do cupping. I love cupping. So if you're taking a break from oral, like you say, you get a lockjaw, maybe you want to come back up and make out. So you just take your hand and cup it over the entire vulva. So now you can feel the heat that's been building from the vulva, and that heat is reflected back in your hand. And sometimes that can help someone just like bring their mind present into
Mhm.
that area of their body, which can increase their stimulation because now they have more of a mind body connection with that part of their body.
So what are some sex toys people often use, and how can you incorporate them?
Oh my gosh, how long do we have?
Yeah.
There's so many there's so many toys. Look, let's just like simplify. So there's dildos, there's strap-ons that we can use with those dildos. There are so many couples toys these days. There's like the rocket for people who want to like scissor with a bulb inside. And then there's air pulse toys like your Womanizer, Satisfier Pros. And those are the ones that have like the little suction on them. Not like a Hoover, but just like a pulse. Especially if you're somebody who gets numb after using a vibrator for a while, you have a hard time with that. That's temporary. I want to say that right there. That numbness is not permanent. It's just temporary in that time. Let's see. Okay. Dildos, air pulse toys, vibrators, couples toys. Yeah, that's enough. And so one popular way to use a vibrator, like especially if you've got like the good old Hitachi magic wand, that's just like old reliable, plugs in the wall, long handle, big girthy bulb, it's not going to leave you hanging. You're not going to have to race the battery to get your fun stuff. It's always so sad when you can hear the battery going down. You're like, so charge your toys, friends. But the Hitachi Magic Wand plugs right in the wall. The cool thing about it is it has a really long handle. So if you and your partner want to use it at the same time, you can, because the bulb is girthy enough for both of you to straddle it. So the person on the bottom can hold it, and then the person on top can straddle over the top of it, and you can have yourself a fun scissor time with the Hitachi wand in the center. There's also the Curve by Womanizer, I think, or Satisfier. These are air pulse toys. They look like blackhead removers. They have a little hole opening, so it looks like it's gonna suck a blackhead out of your face, but
Yeah.
it's meant to put your clit in. If you're like me and you have a clitoral hood ring, you just want to watch it with those because sometimes it can pinch you if you have those. You might want to take your clit ring out or just buy one that has a nozzle that's small enough that that's not an issue. But these you can use like if somebody has a strap on, it's a bit of like gymnastics to do it, but it can be a lot of fun if you slide it down in behind the strap on, and then you can get like that suction feel. So when you look down and you see the dildo go into your partner and strap on play, you get the stimulation that matches what you're visually seeing. So that can
Mm.
feel affirming for some people. Or you can give the air pulse toy or vibrator to your partner while you're giving them strap on penetration. And that way they get that external clitoral stimulation paired with penetration. making it way more pleasurable.
Yeah, great. I just feel like in this area with toys, like, the world is your oyster. Like,
It
there's
truly is.
so many ways, and I wanna reiterate that it's mostly about staying curious
Yes,
and trying out things and communicating with your partner on what is working, what is feeling good, and what they maybe wanna try next.
'Cause not
100%.
everything is gonna feel good. Not everything is gonna be yours, but, like, I think the fun part about sex is that, like, there are lots of ways for you to feel pleasure, but there's, like you're not if you find one way that you feel pleasure, there's, like, a million more, and if you don't discover that, it's like I don't know, some people like to just do one thing, but a lot of us are looking for, like, variety, experience,
Mhm.
playful, like, get out of your box, like, how else can you do it? Even if it doesn't feel good. It's like, "Oh,
Abs
okay, I'm glad we tried that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to make a mistake or try something and be like, "Oh, I didn't really like that." Like, I don't like vibrators, but they sell millions of them. Some people love them, and that's it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned strapping,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping will you just tell our listeners, like, what does strapping mean? Uh,
Yeah.
I kinda get it. Let's get into strapping.
Absolutely. So strap-on play, we call it strap-on because you're strapping on climbing gear. Basically, it looks like you're putting a harness on to go rock climbing. It's so funny, but that's where the name comes from, and it's done with a harness. So you put this little harness on, and then it has an O-ring that holds a dildo. So you're gonna do penetrative sex with someone. Usually, when you're gonna put one of these on, this can feel very affirming for people who are like masked in some way, whether they're trans masked, non-binary, or they're like me, they're just somebody who likes to wear a strap on because it's fun. So you don't have to like go through your gender identity because you enjoy putting these on. I recommend if you're a beginner and you're going to put one of these on that you have fun with it, put it on, do the helicopter because you know you want to, so just go
Yeah.
ahead and do it, okay? Walk around the house, slap it on a few things. It just gets your sillies out,
Yeah.
okay? And have fun with that. Don't feel so awkward about putting it on in front of your partner. You can do it with each other. Like they can help you put the straps on. They can tell you how sexy you look, put it on there, or they can touch themselves while you're putting it on, put on a nice sexy show for you. So you don't have to worry about that part. Like, oh my God, is it awkward that I stopped, that I put this on? It's all awkward. We're naked and swapping body fluids. It's totally okay. All right.
Yeah. We talked about this in our we're just gonna echo again our sex ed episode, but we talked about breaking
Mm.
scripts, which is that
Yeah.
oftentimes in media, when you're seeing a sexual experience, the mood is easily broken.
Mhm.
And ideally, you wanna find yourself with partners who you can be silly while putting on your strap and the mood isn't broken. The moment
Absolutely.
isn't so fragile that getting your sillies out or somebody, like, helping you put that on is gonna break
Yes.
the moment. And so
Absolutely.
breaking that scripts in our head to where it's okay to be like, "I don't know how to put this on," or, like, helping each other or, needing to helicopter for a moment is, like, okay to do.
I
Absolutely okay.
I think it's also good to figure out what kind of dildo that you like. Because when
Mhm.
I personally started using dildos, I my first one was like a vibrator dildo, so it was
Mhm.
very hard, and I did not like it, and then I tried another one that was also very hard, and I
Yes.
realized I thought that was what dildos were, and
Yes.
I was really opposed at the time to finding one that looked too phallic, and so
Mhm.
all of the ones that were pretty, like, just a cylinder were really hard, and so I was like,
Yeah.
"I don't like receiving, I don't like
Mhm.
sex toy penetration and stuff like that," until a friend of mine recommended a certain brand. I found a silicone one that was, like, the perfect size that moved,
Mhm.
and it didn't have a vibrator in it, but it,
Yep.
like, felt so much better because you can heat it up so that it
Mhm.
could be, so that it could be, like,
It's, like, warmer
body
and
temperature,
softer, yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, I like this way better,"
Yes.
and, again, in our sex ed episode, we
Yeah.
talk about how to choose sex toys, what materials to look for because some are
Mhm.
more toxic than others, so we recommend going back to that episode, but,
Mhm.
just, like, finding the type of dildo that you like, knowing that it's okay to, like, find one that you don't like, and
Yeah.
then maybe try a different material or a different firmness,
Yes.
and, like, trying that out too.
Absolutely. If you go to wetforher.com, they sell them by finger size. So
Mhm.
you can go through their guide. So it's like a small is like 1 finger or 2 fingers. This is 3 fingers. But then it's like whose fingers are they using? But it gives
Yes.
you a little more
Yeah.
for guidance. The best thing to do is to go into the store where you can actually touch the demos and things like that. I know that that can feel like, "Oh, I'm so nervous," but I assure you the people who work in there are not judging you.
And
They're they're
oftentimes
they're gonna help you.
yeah, and oftentimes really
Yes.
enthusiastically educational.
Super.
Absolutely.
I remember the first time Allison and I went into a sex shop because we did what the 2 the dildos that I bought them
Mhm,
online and they were too hard. So it got to the point where I was like, "Okay, let's, like, go in together and
mhm.
feel them and
Yeah.
touch them and, like, feel the width," and, like, and, like, yeah, and it was so crazy because there was this guy there and he just, like, walked us through and I was, like, super uncomfortable at first because I was like, "Oh,
Shy.
we're, like,
Yeah.
A shy and
Yeah.
also, like, we're 2 queer AFAB people, like, is
Yeah,
he gonna judge us? Is whatever."
Yeah.
But no,
sure.
he was like, "This is what I do all day, every day." Like,
Yeah.
everybody of all genders, of all, like, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
And so
He was like, "I just wanna make sure that you're having a very fun and safe sex
yeah,
life," and it was
Absolutely.
such a positive experience
yeah,
that yeah, so it can feel intimidating, but be brave,
yeah,
and, like, even if you need to take a friend with you or your partner, like, do it. Give it
yeah,
a
Yeah.
shot. Yeah.
You
yeah,
got this.
yep.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. So techniques for strapping. Do
Yeah.
you have
Like
any advice on how to do it?
Yeah. So if it's your first time, the best thing to do is go tantra. So tantra practices would tell you that whoever's receiving is the person who guides it in. So don't be the person wearing it and be the person guiding it in if both of you've never done this before. But especially like if you're the top and you've never topped and strap on, you don't have any nerve sensation feedback from that dildo. What you're going to be picking up is like pressure and responsiveness from the partner. So it's better if they reach down, find the opening, and guide it in, and you pay attention to what body cues you're getting through these new sensations that you're walking through. So, a really easy way to do that is for the top to stand and for the bottom to scoot to the edge of the bed, kind of like you would for a gynecological exam. Like, scooch, keep scooching, and if you think you've scooched enough, scooch a little bit more. But just to start there, and then you can change your positions as you get more comfortable. But this just helps with guiding it in, making sure that everybody feels comfortable because that first like penetration it's usually like, sometimes your body can brace for it or things like that. So just want
Do
to
you
make it
need
comfy.
lube every time?
It depends. It depends. Like some people will say that like if they apply more lubricant, it feels so wet that they can't get any stimulation. But like don't be afraid to use lube, of course, because I always lube the toy itself before I go in to anything. I'll even like lube my fingers. So whatever I'm gonna put in there, I lube it and then place in.
Mhm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talk about this in the sex ed for sapphics, but it helps, like, prevent friction and tearing and bleeding, and it just
Mhm.
especially when you're involving toys that don't secrete lubricant on their own,
Mhm.
like, unless like, I think always ask, right? But as a
Mhm.
baseline, like,
Expect to use
expect
lube.
to use lube with your toys. So when you
Keep it
go into your
close.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you go into your sex shop or you buy online, What For Her is actually lesbian owned, made sex toys made by lesbians for queer
Folks,
sapphic
Yes.
yeah.
people.
Yes.
And so when you go in, make sure you buy a lubricant as well as a dildo.
Mhm. Mhm. Just make sure that it's water-based if you're using it with your silicone toys.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a little bit of research that needs we need to talk about this again.
Yeah.
We
Base.
break it down so
We
it's
do.
not so scary or overwhelming, but yeah, there are certain types of lube you need for certain types of toys, and also knowing your
Mhm.
partner's allergies is important.
Super important. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So then I know that a lot of times it's just like us. Is it like we talked about in oral sex, you can kind of play around. Is that the same for
Mhm.
strap-ons? Do you kind of like try different angles, different tempos? Like what do you do once you're in there?
Absolutely. Getting in there, there's so much going on. I just like trying to have flashback to my first strap-on experiences. There's a lot of looking down and watching what's happening because, like I say again, you don't have feedback from that part. Like you can feel the pressure of it pushing against your mons pubis, so that's like the upper area on your vulva, and that can give you some feedback. But like the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with not looking at it when you're going. So I'm just stating that because like if you find yourself, I'm like I'm looking down at this. Is this Yeah, that's part of the journey is just like the in and out part. But what you're trying to do is find a rhythm with each other. What you don't want to do is, anything that you've ever seen in a movie that some cis guy is doing.
Yep.
Just
Don't
use that as a reference, like, don't jackhammer, don't go in deep immediately, and you're actually wanting to build to doing what's this one sex educator? She calls it a scoot. So you're scooping your hips is what you're doing. So it's that same come hither motion that you do with your fingers. You're trying to do that with your hips. You have to remember that like the yummy parts inside of the vagina are going to be like your anterior fornix, which is a deep spot, but it's also up and toward the navel. So
Mm.
it's not like deep and back toward the spine of this person. So you're not like trying to pound at them, you're trying to jackrabbit. You want to do a scooping motion. So like you're trying to figure out like also the intensity and pacing that this person enjoys. So like keep some eye contact. It's good to keep some cues, like some nonverbal cues are good. Somebody puts their hand on your chest and kind of pushes. That might mean that you're too deep. Feels like you're hitting the cervix and it's not pleasurable. Whereas if they come and put their hand up on your back of your shoulder and pull you toward them, then they might want more depth. So get some communication going back and forth.
I think it's also important to know, like this is a muscle memory that you're gonna need to build. Like, if you're
Mhm.
not used to thrusting, especially
Mhm.
the scooping kind of thrusting,
Yeah.
like, it's totally normal to be kind of
Uh-huh.
awkward at first.
You're gonna be awkward, and I'm gonna just say something. It ain't easy. It ain't easy. Like trying to stay up there and in there. Like it takes a certain amount of physicality to be able to do this, especially if you're gonna be on top and be the one who's wearing the strap. So don't be afraid to like roll over and share labor of this situation and put the receiver on top and be like, here, like you ride this however you want to. And I want to say this to the receiver. You don't have to bounce up and down on it if that doesn't feel pleasurable to you. I see a lot of couples where they've both got vaginas and they'll be like, oh, yeah, you need to get up on top of it and work it, and your thighs are burning and everything. And I'm like, who's that for?
Yeah.
Who's that for? Like, I get it if you're putting on a show because that's pleasurable to your partner. Cool. Not going to yuck your yum. But if you're burning your thighs and bouncing up and down, and most of us with vaginas, when we do that, it doesn't feel good to us. That's a typically like a cis het move, and it's made to be there to stimulate a penis. That penis that you're on, or dildo, or like a purple dolphin, or whatever you chose out of the store, it's for
Yeah.
you. It's for your pleasure. And I know if you've been socialized as a woman, it's hard for you to center your pleasure. But a lot of times it can be more pleasurable to us if you sit down and you just rock back and forth, like front to back, and rock on that anterior fornix and rock on that urethral sponge. Like it's all about you. That's okay.
Yeah, something that was really big for me to learn once I started incorporating, like, and I'm saying I, but I mean like we. Once we started like incorporating strap-ons was like, oh, like I don't have to perform for this dildo because this dildo, I don't have to do anything to it. This dildo, this like whole
Is here
act
for
is
you.
here for me.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I don't have to like oftentimes like whenever I would have sex, like heterosexual sex, it was like
Hmm.
or like sex with a cis man, it was like I was kind of in pain, and then but I kinda grit my teeth through it because, uh,
Hmm.
I was like, "This is gonna be pleasurable to my partner," but this, like, strap-on is all about me, and so I've had to, like, really play and learn, like, what I actually like, knowing that I don't have to grit my teeth through anything, and I know
Absolutely.
listeners, I know I'm bringing up my, like, previous sex experiences with cis men a lot, but I think for a lot of us who've come out later in life, that is how we have, like, socialized sex, and it does
Hmm.
take a lot of time to break down those walls, and that's why I really encourage for people who have experiences like me to just play with it,
Hmm.
and, like, something that I was talking to my therapist about was, like or, like, something that I was thinking about was, like, "Oh, I realize that when I have sex, I'm out of body, and I need to learn how to come back into my body so that I can actually feel sex because this strap is my pleasure. This strap I don't owe this strap anything."
That's right.
Uh,
No, yeah. And sometimes you're going to put it in there and it's not going to feel good at all. And you
Mhm.
can't figure out how to make it feel good that day. And that's okay.
Yes, I think that's something important to, like, hit on is that it's okay if it doesn't feel good that day. It's okay if you don't
Yeah.
orgasm, and it doesn't make you
Yeah.
any less queer.
No,
Yeah, I
no.
think I remember my first experiences, and when I wasn't orgasming, I was a little worried. I was like,
Hmm.
Is this a sign?
I know.
Luckily, I had some great friends who were like, "It's not a sign, you're just
No.
new at this, and you're
Mhm.
figuring out," and I came from, like, abstinence culture, so I didn't know
Mhm.
anything about sex, and so it's
Mhm.
okay if things you're figuring it out, maybe it doesn't feel good one day, maybe something you tried doesn't work, but it doesn't make you any less queer, and it doesn't mean you should give up.
And for my
No.
people pleasers
Absolutely
out
not.
there, there's something so satisfying of being like, "You know what? I actually don't wanna use the strap." And then your partner can
Yeah.
just go, "Cool, because you don't owe that strap anything." There's like your partner's gonna
No.
find pleasure outside of the strap, and so
Yep.
you can just not
Absolutely.
have penetrative sex that day. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Mm.
in our hypothetical sex situation, so
Mhm.
we've gone through foreplay, both emotional and physical foreplay. We've talked about oral
Mhm.
sex, we talked about sex
Mhm.
toys, we talked about fingers, we talked about strapping. My almost like besides the actual sex, like I think what makes sex really special is the aftercare. It's the
Mhm.
time when I really feel like most connected to my partner, especially when
Mhm.
it's like intentional aftercare. Because sometimes you have sex and you gotta go, like you gotta go to work. It was
Yeah.
just like a fun, quick thing. But, like,
Sure.
when you have time to, like, do aftercare, it's really special. So, my question to you,
Mhm.
Whitney, is, like, what is aftercare? Why is it important? And what types of aftercare are there?
Aftercare is just like it says, it's the care that you give to someone after you have an intense, like vulnerable experience. So I apply aftercare to like resolving conflict or having intense
Mhm,
conversations as well as having sex. The thing about sex is it spikes your dopamine, vasopressin, oxytocin, all of these yummy neurotransmitters and neuromodulators get amplified. Well, what happens after that is your dopamine comes down because it gets replaced with prolactin. Prolactin produces a feeling of satisfaction, but that can be a jolt going from high dopamine to prolactin. And it can make some people feel regret, remorse, or like, did you like doing all of those things with me? Because now I don't know. And you can feel yourself like shrinking and getting smaller because you just had a whole lot of pleasure and that activated the space where you're like, am I taking up too much space?
mm,
Aftercare soothes that. Aftercare gives us more oxytocin, and that way we can feel settled and secure. So you can do that with cuddling, having a snack afterwards, talking about your highlight reel, taking a shower together, cleaning up the toys with each other, give each other a high five, watch a funny movie together, eat some fruit snacks. You dial it up your way. But it's just showing consideration after having an extremely vulnerable experience.
mhm. Yeah, because it's common for people to, like, cry after sex. Some people
Absolutely.
like, I've had people tell me that they had, like, insane spiritual breakthroughs during their orgasm, and then they wanna just,
Hmm.
like, sit in it afterwards.
For sure.
Something that I really like to do is, like, gentle massage of the vulva, like, from a physical
Hmm.
aftercare sense of, like,
Hmm.
like, just, like and, like, massages that kind of get lighter and lighter until it's just, like, you're just gently touching the thighs and kind of just, like, dissipating helping that energy kinda dissipate, like, going up the stomach, going up to the chest, like, down the legs,
Absolutely.
and just, like it just when it's done to me, it just is, like,
Hmm.
un unmatched, like, calm
Absolutely.
afterwards.
So we've talked about like what aftercare is. How do people do it? Well, it depends. It's very subjective because some people they do want to be left alone for a moment. So that's something that you want to discuss ahead of time because having a really intense experience and then just like rolling over, jumping into a shower, that can leave someone feeling really vulnerable. Like if they're just sitting there like in the proverbial wet spot by themselves, you you want to like be tender with them because we can get these feelings of regret or we can feel like, do you still love me? Or, did I take up too much space there? And so fulfilling that aftercare in the way the person wants it and what's complementary to both of you is really soothing. So that could be cuddling, that could be watching a funny show, eating some fruit snacks together. Who doesn't love a good fruit snack? Or ordering DoorDash because that's lots of fun. Getting down and getting spicy with each other and then ordering some sushi. Could be a good time. Uh,
Sushi, yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's like that resonates with
eating so much sushi in bed. Yes, chopsticks. It's fun and doesn't leave any crumbs. It's great.
Words of affirmation.
I
Love
love
words of
words of affirmation,
affirmation
yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah, my wife and I we love to share a highlight reel. So some of our favorite questions after are like, "Hey, when did you feel the most connected to me?" Because a lot of times we put the orgasm at like the apex of the experience. And for a lot of us, it's just a nice little side dish. Like, oh, yeah, I had an orgasm. That was great. But when you looked me in my eyes and you said all those things to me, like that really rocked me.
Mm.
Letting somebody know that lets them know that they don't have to focus on the orgasm as the apex experience. Like there can be a lot of peaks in the journey.
I
I
love
love
that,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and then it also feeds into, like, the next time you have sex and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, I've got one more question for you, and that is if you could give any advice to someone just starting to learn about queer sex, AFAB sex, what would you tell them?
Gosh. Well, number one, I want to think about like how you learn. So if you're a little bookworm, you want to dive into a book, there's a great one by Felice Newman and it's called The Whole Lesbian Sex Book. Like just get in there, dive in, all the pages. It's got all the good stuff, all the yummy things. It's even got nice little illustrations for you. It's very inclusive. And I love the languaging in there. And it's got all the topics that you're looking for. If you're a visual learner, you want to jump on my Patreon or jump onto something like Get Cheeks, where you can see some ethical porn and see real bodies doing real sex in like real ways and get away from the media and how they hype it up and false senses and a lot of heteronormative frames there.
Your Patreon, how can we find that?
So my Patreon is patreon.com/BDE Moves, and everything is on there categorized into collections for you. So you can get on there and you can go to hands on the V. So if you want to know what to do with your digits, mouth, and strap on tutorials are all on there.
That's incredible. I love that you made this resource because I feel like this is just, again, like such a topic that everybody has questions about, but all the mainstream resources are made for heterosexual couples. And the fact that you have this amazing, incredible resource that's like readily available for anybody who's asking. I just like, I want to hype it up a lot because
Oh, thanks.
I wish I had known about you when I first came out because I would have absolutely given you all of my money.
I appreciate that. I try to keep it accessible. It's just $15 a month, and then the first 7 days is free if you just want to check it out and see if it's for you.
Oh my God, so worth it. Okay, so we talked about what resources are out there for queer people, but where can listeners connect with you outside of your Patreon if they have more questions?
Absolutely. The best place to find me is on Instagram. So Instagram is going to be bde.moves, and that's my handle. And you can find all of my content there. And you can also find all of my links to other resources.
Amazing. Okay, I want to plug the Sapphic Sex Ed We
Yes.
Deserve video because it really is it's like such a wealth of information to come into this episode. You kind of jump the gun if you're watching this episode, but now that you're here, why don't you go figure out learn about the anatomy and like what it is you are interacting with. It's
safe
just so
sex
good.
practices.
Safe sex practices.
We're going to talk about like busting the myths of like pubic hair and what it should look like and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Go listen to that video. Or
Definitely
watch that
required.
video.
Definitely required. We want to thank Whitni for being here. Thank BDE Moves. It was just such a great topic, and we really appreciated how calm and accessible you made this information.
Yeah, super approachable. It was
Yes.
great.
Oh, wow. I appreciate that. Thank you. And thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's thanks to all listeners who got this far. If you want to rate our show, if you're on Spotify, you can give us a 5-star rating. Same thing on Apple Podcasts. If you're on YouTube, which I highly recommend rewatching if you're not on YouTube, watching it on YouTube, I'm going to give the episode a thumbs up, or you can subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Simply Sapphic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media,
And share episodes with your friends.
See you next time.